It's a point that I've made many times before, but here on my channel I want to focus on both financial and societal issues. And I think I've found a really interesting one that not many people directly speak about, but I think it's something worth drawing some attention to. As usual, you find me on a nice walk, or cycle, but today is a walk, as we discuss these matters. And today's topic is about finance and financing items. Now, what I mean by that is, instead of paying for things, say, in cash, and I mean genuinely in cash, like you buy it outright, because of how expensive a lot of things are, people now decide to finance items. Because let's say you're buying a new car and it costs 50,000. That's not going to be obtainable for most people, but they still want the car and it's something that they think they can get. So, if you can't pay for it in cash, finance it. Pay for it over a couple of months, over a couple of years. You might pay £1,000 a month for 50 months, or probably more than that because of the interest that's going to come along with it. Generally though, the concept is quite a clear-cut one in the sense of you pay perhaps a little bit more for an item, but you get to have it now. And in the eyes of many people, this makes things that otherwise wouldn't be now obtainable. On the surface of it, this is a great thing. You can now afford stuff that you couldn't have afforded before. And we all like the concept of that. But I've noticed one thing with these projects, with these programs, and that's that when items go on finance, the very opposite of what they intended to do happens. The items don't become cheaper, they become way more expensive. I'm going to use the car example that I just gave. Spending out 50,000 or more, or something like that, for a vehicle is expensive. And there's very few people who can and would do that. So let's say that car now goes on sale for £500 a month. It's now an affordable car. £500, you know, your wage might be, I don't know, 2-3 grand. You can now afford this vehicle. Something that would have cost way more than what you could have ever paid for is now really within your range. And that makes it make a lot of sense for people initially. But companies are aware of this. And the very finance plans that were supposed to, or were marketed to financially free us, seem to be now trapping us more than ever. It's obvious for us that people want, well, big companies want to make as much profit as they can. And right now this seems to be the genius way to make it. Because instead of having someone pay 50,000 once, you can now have them pay 60, 70,000 because, you know, even if the car now costs, let's say, 700 a month, that's still way cheaper than what they could have bought it for before. People think they're getting a good deal, but obviously they're not. Companies are bumping up the prices. I guess what I'm trying to say is because of the readily availability of purchasing items on finance, we may not notice as much that money coming out of our account like we would if we were making a very substantial payment. What I think this has allowed for is companies the ability to, well, put the prices up so much without anyone really pointing an eye, or pointing a finger I should say, because they don't think about it. The money just goes out, it costs what it costs, and that's that. But, as I always say, if we want to keep things like big businesses in check, we need to keep an eye on what they do. Now, unrealistic interest rates are also a huge factor. Companies lending out money at extortionate rates. But also just the fact that companies can then put the price up to more. Because now a £100,000 car, let's say, which is a large amount for a car, most people can now have that, or a lot of people can now have that. An item that they couldn't have afforded before now becomes readily available and accessible. And it's how big business markets to more people. So it increases its market share, which is obviously beneficial to the companies, but it also comes with its own benefit, which is not the extra market share. Whatever you need to buy, if it comes out of your wage in a monthly package and it's affordable, you don't question if it's fair value or good value. You're just going to pay for it. You don't really think about it too much, and big businesses do seem to know this. They can raise the price of assets overall. Let's say the item now costs £500 a month, whatever it is. Well, that seems fair, but the actual retail price of this item has now gone up to, let's say, £2,000, when if you'd have bought cash traditionally, it might have been £1,000, right? Yes, it's still obtainable to you because now you can finance it, but the point is clear. The point is this: by going onto finance, People don't notice how much they're spending overall. They don't notice the prices rising because they only see the price that comes out of their pay package, which might be actually less than what the item would have costed, of course. That's why finance makes sense. But a consequence of that, I think, in my personal view, people get basically scammed. They pay significantly more for items. Companies can mark items up a lot more, which forces more people into the world of renting and finance. And if you think about that, it's a vicious cycle that makes us all poorer. Because things are paid for over a longer period of time, we get less opportunity to buy it outright. That gives big businesses and those in the money markets more control over us, which is obviously not good for us. As well as that, if we think about it, other things that this is going to lead to, I think it's going to be a lot more difficult for your average person to own stuff. Because like I say, the outright price rises and your only option is to rent and finance. As the prices continue to rise and rise, that becomes a case for more and more people. On this particular topic, I don't think it's a good spot that we find ourselves in. I think it's something that's not beneficial to, well, basically everybody. If you're watching this video, chances are it's not good for you. And that's the same for me as well. How do we solve this though? Now this is a much more difficult question, I think. Well, first let's acknowledge what the actual problem is. Big business seems to just want to exploit us for as much money as they can get. They seem to be very unscrupulous with it, and, well, they don't really care about what the consequences is for your average person. What we need to do is open our eyes, and this video is more of just a point that I've noticed. Sometimes I say it's a discussion, sometimes I say it's a rant, sometimes I say it's a chat. This one's more of just a point that I noticed, and I'm on a nice view, right? I've got a nice view. I thought I might as well point it out. So I'm not saying anything's right or wrong here, it's just my discussion. And what I'm saying is, by financing everything, or by putting everything onto finance, people don't notice the actual outright price. By ignoring the actual outright price, companies can then rise that, because, you know, if the payment's still the same, even if the term or the contract goes up, people aren't going to notice, people aren't going to care, and they don't. And a consequence of that is, prices get artificially inflated, and your average person, yet again, this is a common theme that we see in a lot of these videos, but your common person can afford less and less. I don't think it's a good state. I understand why people do finance. Some items that you need, you can't avoid financing. But whilst this video is not necessarily a solution, we need to bring attention to the actual problems to even think about creating a solution. The way that your average person is being exploited by big business these days seems to be becoming a larger and larger issue. How we solve it, I do not know. But what I do know is, it can't be good for us. And we need to think about what contracts we're entering, what we're paying for, and what value we're getting. Big business does appear to be becoming a lot more immoral and a lot less beneficial to your average person than it ever has been in the past. Of course, we wouldn't expect big business to care about the average you and me, but perhaps there was a point in the past where customer loyalty meant something, brand image meant something, identity of a business meant something. Now it just seems to be about what money they can get out of you. Again, I don't know what the solution is, but I do want to draw some attention to it. So, thank you for watching. I don't know if this one was any good, just wanted to share my opinion on this matter. See you all soon, and goodbye for now.